What's up, YouTube? I'm Brett from Rants. As always, guys, if y'all enjoy our content, don't forget to like, subscribe, and leave that comment down below. Alright, so, as everyone probably already knows, unless you've been living under a rock for the last couple of weeks, Black Widow was a huge box office success, at least in the first week. Now, I watched this movie, I reviewed it here on Rants, and I was not that impressed. I said in my review that I thought the very first 30 minutes of it was the best of the MCU. Was the best 30 minutes of the MCU. But after that, it was just really cheap jokes, storylines that didn't make sense, characters that just really that were unlikable in a lot of ways. I just didn't enjoy it. I thought the bad guy, like I said, in the very first 30 minutes seemed pretty awesome, and then after that it just kind of like it's like it fell off a cliff, kind of like its second week at the box office, being beat by LeBron James Space Jam. Now a lot of people are going to say, well, hey, LeBron James Space Jam, that's going to be something big. Not really, because even if you look at Michael Jordan's Space Jam, it wasn't like that was just like a huge absolute success. Yes, it has a huge cult following, but it wasn't like it was groundbreaking by any stretch of the imagination. Space Jam was not meant to be ahead of Black Widow in week 2 of Black Widow's theatrical release. It just wasn't meant to happen. Now, a lot of the problem is, and this is what is happening right now, theaters are complaining that a lot of the problems that they're having is Disney Plus releasing it on Disney Plus at the same time that it was released at theaters. Now, I kind of understand that, and I've said this many times here on Rants or Us. I felt like we're in a new era. I feel like movie theaters are almost kind of a dying breed at this point. I feel like right now, or at least the first week with Black Widow, everybody was like, yeah, we want to get out and we want to do something. It was boredom, basically, that got them out there to want to see theaters. And then once people kind of realize, like, oh man, going to theaters kind of sucks. It's kind of expensive. You take your family of 4 out there and you're looking for a couple $100. You know, by the time you get done with popcorn, tickets, all that other, gas to get there, everything there, you could be out a lot of money to maybe see a movie that you don't even really like, or you didn't really want to see in the beginning. So, I mean, there's a lot of reasons why the theater experience sucks. I get it. Nostalgia always goes back to, oh man, I miss sitting in a theater with the sticky armchairs and the people talking in the front. Yeah, that's what I want to see. And then when you get there and you see it, you're like, oh man, I spent all this money and I can't even hear it. Like, there's a lot of reasons why you don't want to go to the theater. People would rather sit at home and really watch all this on Disney Plus. I don't blame them. I was that way too. I don't want to go to the theater and see this. I'd rather watch it at home, even though it is a pretty steep price, $30 to pay for what I would say garbage, which is Black Widow. But still, at the same time, you know what? It's better than, dishing out the $100 or $200 that I had to spend with my family having to go up there into the theater. So in that regard, it was more watchable experience. But anyways, let's go ahead and let's get into what the theaters are actually saying about Black Widow. It says right here, Black Widow started off strong, garnering $80 million in theatrical revenues in scoring the biggest box office opening of the pandemic. However, after its record-breaking opening, Black Widow dropped 67% at the box office during its second weekend. The sharp drop made it the largest second weekend box office decline of any MCU film. You know what? I kind of expected this to begin with. I mean, after I saw the movie, I was like, oh man, people just aren't going to watch this. Like, there was all this hype for it, but it was like, I don't know, it was very underwhelming, and I didn't go into it with like high expectations in the first place, and I still felt like it was incredibly underwhelming. Maybe it was the first 30 minutes I got like really into it, and then I was like, whoa, this doesn't even feel like the same movie. It just feels like a really cheap, corny jokes from here on out, and a storyline that just really didn't make any sense. Um, but anyways, the sharp drop. Let's see, where was I at? In some ways, the drop was expected, as Black Widow was Disney's way of testing the waters with Disney Plus and the coronavirus pandemic. However, it was still anticipated to bring crowds back to the theaters, and the theaters are understandably concerned about this box office drop and the reasons behind it. It says, as reported by THR, NATO criticized Disney Plus for releasing Black Widow on their streaming service on its opening weekend, attributing to the decision to the film's box office collapse. NATO's explained that while Disney may count its streaming revenue as a success, it is damaging the theater business that is still greatly struggling and in need of recovery after the pandemic. They blamed Disney Plus for Black Widow's disappointing performance and stated that simultaneous releases should be left behind with the pandemic era. NATO also brought about the issue of piracy on Disney Plus, questioning just how much revenue will be lost from it. And then, of course, it goes on in the statement below. But hey, you know what? I kind of feel like this has been the problem. And this is always going to be a problem now. And I kind of actually agree with theaters on this. If you're going to have it where it's going to release in theaters, you can't have it where it releases on Disney Plus. You just can't. Because, yeah, Disney might be looking at that and me looking at all these gaudy numbers. But the theaters, they're sitting there struggling. They're getting half of their people back. So, you know, when you have it that way, I feel like, yeah, you're not doing right by theaters. But at the same time, do you really believe, and I'm saying this to any of y'all out there, do you really believe that if you take the Disney Plus situation out, that there would have been that many people that would have gone out there, that all those people that bought on Disney Plus would be going out there to theaters? I would say probably not. You know, let's just say half the people. Let's just go with that. Let's say 50% of the people stayed at home and watched, which that's not a correct number. But let's just say 50% stayed and watched on Disney Plus. If you take away the Disney Plus, you might get that number up to 60%. But I think there's going to be a good 40% that just wouldn't even show up to watch the movie. They would wait for that movie to come out on Disney Plus. Look, Phase 4 of the MCU just looks absolutely boring. It does. It looks absolutely boring. The marketing for Black Widow I thought was utter crap. They tried to promote all this feminist crap. It just wasn't interesting. Especially when you already kind of know what's going to happen to this character. It was the only reason that I could see even for this is to introduce Pugh into who plays Black Widow's Scarlett Johansson's sister in this movie, to introduce her into the MCU. That's about it. It wasn't really about a Black Widow movie. It was to introduce her. That's the only reasonable explanation I can come up for this movie. Because Black Widow movie should have been where Captain Marvel movie was. That's when I would have loved to seen the Black Widow movie. I don't want to see it after all of that's gone on and then years later we're going to create something that kind of was in between Civil War and so forth. I don't want to see that movie at that point. 5 years ago I would have thought differently about it. I feel like a lot of fans feel that same way. But anyways, what do y'all think? What do y'all believe that maybe theaters shouldn't be complaining about it and just be thankful that, hey, people are sitting back in seats again? Do you feel like Disney Plus is doing theaters wrong? Do you believe that it would have? Do you believe that if it hadn't have been for Disney Plus releasing Black Widow onto the streaming service, do you believe it we even had the numbers that it had? I would say no. If I had to guess, I would say no, big time. I don't believe it would have made that much of a difference. But at the same time, I understand where theaters are coming about is they're struggling right now. They're about to go out of business. The theater is about to die. And then you get these streaming services that are like, yeah, big hit. And then they're getting all the money. And then these theaters are shutting down. So, I mean, I understand why theaters are pissed. I really do. But then at the same time, I understand where Disney's coming from. I don't think they really thought Black Widow was going to be that epic of a success anyways. I think it's like what the steepest decline from week 1 to week 2 in all MCU history, or at least the second biggest decline. It's one of those. I mean, it's horrific, but I mean, if you've seen the movie, you probably understand why. Even if you enjoyed it, you're probably not going out there and being like, "Hey guys," telling your friends, your family. You're not going to be like, "Hey guys, go and watch this movie." Probably not going to be that way. I know I wasn't. I know the first thing that when I talk to somebody about watching this movie, I'd be like, it was good 30 minutes, and then after that it was just utter disaster. I wouldn't pay the money to see it in theaters. That's for sure. But anyways, let me know what y'all think down below. As always, guys, thanks for watching. Y'all take care.